if we look around baseball right now in terms of where Seattle kind of ranks, where they kind of sit, the clubs that are in significantly better shape for the future than Seattle in terms of pitching are those that have young rotations performing they're already making waves in the majors right now. Atlanta comes to mind. Ian Anderson, Max Fried, Mike Soroka, Kyle Wright, already seeing the big leagues. And, those first three making pretty big impacts. And Soroka obviously got hurt last year, but, he's a top of the rotation type guy, number 2. Kyle Muller, Jared Schuster on the way, Tucker Davidson. And all of those three, except Schuster, expect to get to the big leagues by the end of, probably 2021. So you can see why Atlanta would certainly be a club that would rank ahead of Seattle in this equation. The Padres, with Lamet and Paddock and Mackenzie Gore, and Blake Snell's only 28 and has 3 years of control left. Mike Clevenger's 30, but they do control him through 2022. So, while he's only on the short end of that, you can see why, the bigger picture, the Padres are in good shape for the next 5+ years. The White Sox, I think, would be right there. Lucas Giolito, Dylan Cease, Michael Kopech is coming back. Ronaldo Lopez already up. Garrett Crochet, who pitched out of the bullpen down the stretch, he could still start for them. They have Jared Kelly down the road. He was a prep pick from this past year's draft. That's a really strong group that probably belongs in the top 5 in our little discussion right now. The Detroit Tigers come to mind because Casey Mize and Tariq Skubal hit the big leagues last year. There's a lot expected of both of those pitchers. Matt Manning is on the way. I think probably 2021 we see Matt Manning. I think the Royals are actually building a pretty nice nest of young arms. Brady Singer broke through last year. They drafted Asa Lacy, Jackson Kowar, Carlos Hernandez, Daniel Lynch. It's a really good group of young guys, and that's on top of whatever Danny Duffy gives them. At least for the short term. And they have a nice group of longer term arms down there too, like Ronald Bolanos is one, Ben Hernandez is another. Was just talking about Hernandez the other day too, as I went through a list of arms that clubs looking ahead 3 to 5 years might target right now because of their upside. Ben Hernandez came up with the Royals. I'd say Seattle's ahead of Miami right now, but I like what the Marlins are building too. Obviously, Sixto Sanchez, Max Meyer, Braxton Garrett, Edward Cabrera, Trevor Rogers. That's a pretty good group. I do think Seattle's probably ahead of that group right now because there's more depth. But Miami has an advantage at the top of that, I think. I think Sixto Sanchez having a little bit of experience and already being at the big league level and eliminating some of the risk that comes with prospects that they carry around inherent risk. You get to the big leagues, you perform a little, some of that risk starts to go away. Sanchez has that, and the Mariners group really doesn't. At least the Mariners prospect group does not. I think Oakland belongs in this discussion because Jesus Luzardo might be a number 1 starter. Dalton Jeffries, AJ Puck, and they get points in the same way Atlanta and the White Sox do, and the Marlins with Sixto Sanchez because some of their key guys are already in the majors and they control those players for the long haul. On the other side of this, I think teams like the Giants that are going to have to keep buying or trading for their pitching, I think they're in a tough spot. I think the next few years they're going to have short contention windows if they contend at all. I look at the Giants. Everybody says, "Hey, check out the Giants farm system." I have a buddy that works for the Giants. He says, "Hey, check out our farm system. What do you think?" Like, I don't know what that. And he goes, "Yeah, that's what I thought." He goes, "That explains our front office's moves the past 2 off seasons." Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Because the best of your farm system isn't really all that close, other than Joey Bart, who made his debut in 2020, and there's just not a lot else there, especially on the pitching front. I like what the Cardinals have put together. Jack Flaherty, who's my favorite possible potential suggestive trade target for the Mariners if they go out looking to trade for frontline pitching. But Carlos Martinez is still 29 and they control him for a few years. Alex Reyes is 26. Dakota Hudson's under club control for 4 more years. They have Matt Liberatore, Zach Thompson, Tink Kent's on the way. I think that's a pretty interesting young group that I'd probably put it just at least slightly ahead of St. Louis, and mostly because of Jack Flaherty, but at least slightly ahead of St. Louis is at least slightly ahead of Seattle in this conversation. And I think we always have to consider the Rays here. You know, they just picked up Luis Patino in the Snell trade. Brendan McKay and Brent Honeywell are coming back from injury. Shane Baz is within a year or so of the majors right now. Cole Wilcox, they got in the Snell deal as well. They just drafted Nick Bitsko, a high-ceiling prep arm from this past year's draft. Same with J.J. Goss, who was my favorite pick. One of my favorite picks of the entire draft was J.J. Goss. And you toss on top of the prospects arms like Tyler Glasnow, who's already made an impact for the Rays. Shane McClanahan as well. The Rays are definitely near the top. I'd put them in the top 5. And the Rays are probably forever going to be, it seems, in the top 5 when it comes to pitching depth and being able to project it forward, both at the big league level and down in the minors. I would say Seattle is probably top 10, but lack the established young arms at the big league level to compete with the top 5 or 6. I'd say they're probably somewhere between 8 and 12. Once we see more of the prospects break in and kind of erase some of that inherent risk, they perform well against the best competition, and we'll see Gilbert in 2021, then Seattle will start climbing those ranks a bit. But they need to keep developing below the majors, maintain balance in drafting and signing international talent if they want to be kind of a factory of sorts. And I do believe that's one of the goals the Mariners have, to become a place pitchers want to go because they take care of them, they develop them, and they end up being really good young pitchers at the big league level at 20, 22, 24 years old. And I think the Dodgers are the best example of this, despite the fact that the Dodgers can go out and spend whatever they want, whenever they want. They haven't had to go out and splurge for the huge free agent starter.